Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Ben Reeve, and I'm joined tonight on this episode of the mid-season review. I'm joined by Johnny. Hello, John.
Hello, Ben. How are you going?
I'm doing good, mate. And
That's
to the
good.
right of me on your screen is Jake. How you feeling, Jake?
Oh, fabulous. Spent most of the day in front of a campfire cooking cinnamon scroll pancakes. What a day.
Oh, Jesus.
That is a lot. I've just cooked a roast for the family, and the Yorkshire puddings didn't come out as well as I liked, but they still tasted okay. They just didn't have that little burst. So, what have I done wrong, John? I've done something wrong. You're the cook here, so I can't figure it out.
I haven't
Did
really
some.
made Yorkshire puddings, but
Oh,
maybe it didn't if you have to rise them, maybe it didn't rise enough, or there wasn't enough additives in there or something. There's just something
something
missing, I reckon.
missing a little bit of love because I'm so
A little bit
frustrated
of
with the
love.
last 6 weeks. But let's talk. Let's get into the show. Let's talk a little bit about. Let's start with talking about the first part of the season, I guess in totality. I want to start off by just sort of giving a quick rundown. So we've clearly won the first 7 games, premiership favourites. We're sailing very prettily there. Everything's going smoothly, and then we've hit an iceberg somehow. Dead ahead, sir. Hit an iceberg, and since then it's been 1-5. But Jake? I'll start with you. How have you seen the season, the roller coaster ride? How's it been for you, and probably some of your observations of how it's been for the Cats fan community as well?
I mean, that's been the Cats fan community's definitely been as much a roller coaster as the season itself, which makes sense. Look, I really think that it's the manner in which you like the order in which things happen largely dictates how we get to halfway feeling. If we started 1-5 and then the last 7 weeks we're 7-0, we're up and about, we're all about it. The thing is, I think in that 7-0 stretch that we had at the start of the year, there was some great wins. There's some gutsy wins that have probably been forgotten a bit. The one over the Crows, not only going to that match with a few big absences, but then losing more players as that game went on, and right before the first bounce, like that was a pretty famous win. I think a really big deal to get that done. There's been some really great victories. There's been some disappointing losses too, and I suppose I look at it going, there were definitely games in that first 7 weeks that we could have lost. Coin flip results. The St Kilda game, even in round one, was a game that was very closely contested. There's a number of matches there we could have lost. And I think you look at the last 6 weeks, there's games there that we could have won as well that, we lose close against Melbourne. We, fall short against Port. We fall just short against the Giants. I actually think an 8-5 record is pretty indicative of where this team's at. And I'm sure we'll get into that in a deeper way, but that's just my sort of general thoughts. I'm not freaking out. There's stuff that I'm frustrated or a bit unhappy about, but at the end of the day, I think it's an accurate reflection of where we're at right now, all things considered.
What about yourself, John? Have you hit the panic button yet? Are you ready to toss it all in, quit football fellowship? Where's your head at? Where was it at round 7, at the end of round 7, and where is it at now?
End of round 7 was pretty happy. At the end of the Swans game, if people recall listening to the podcast, I'd given up and gone over to the Swans, but Jake and Sam had sat me down for a bit and, persuasively talked me back to the Cats. There wasn't any forms of harmfulness going on there. It was just, very gentle dunking of the head in some toilets.
Just come back, John. Come back,
Has
John.
to be done
back.
sometimes.
Nah, very much similar to what Jake is, like not panicking, not freaking out. It sort of feels like this is where we are at the moment with the young midfield coming through, young guys still finding their way in this side. As Jake said, we could have. I really think we could have won nearly all the games apart from the Gold Coast game that we lost.
I was going to say we won't talk about that, but we will talk about every single game. So let's start with
Mm.
round one though. Now, Jake, you said that this was a close one. The Cats played St Kilda, the opening of at GMHBA, the opening of the Joel Selwood stand. Um, we went. It was a close game, this one, and I thought St Kilda played pretty well. We did go 45 minutes without a goal at one stage until Tui kicked one at the 10-minute mark of the fourth quarter to start a run of 3 goals for the Catters. Got us feeling pretty good at that point. I know you guys were in the stands shaking. You know, the foundations were already starting to get a little bit wobbly there,
Oh, yes.
but it was Paddy Dangerfield with the captain's goal. I didn't think he was going to kick it, and it looked like for all money going to be a point, or at least hitting the post. Same thing, I guess. But it didn't look like a goal, but it snuck in with 90 seconds left. The crowd went nuts. The Selwood stand nearly collapsed under the heaving that was the chaps just going bonkers. Mate, I thought the Saints played really well. But, Jake, what did you think of that game? Your first experience in the standing room area. Talk us through it.
It was a frustrating game at times. It was, Ross the boss was in command for large stretches of it. I think a game that we might have even lost last year. So I was, anytime you can come away with 4 points after a side has a red hot go at you. It was nice to see Ollie Dempsey play well. Great to see Danger kick that goal. We talked about it on the chaps at the time that I think Johnny brought it up. He hadn't had that chance to have a big captain's moment in 2023. And I felt like, that was the one, game on the line. He steps up, sinks it from outside 50. It was a really good moment for him to have. But yeah, 4 points obtained.
John, the Saints did get within, was it a kick or a point or something like that? They did kick the last few goals there. It was getting a little bit nervous at some point. How were you feeling? I personally felt like we had it in hand, but yeah, the Saints did kick quite a few in a row there, and it was looking a little bit nervous.
A little bit nervous, but those nerves vanished very quickly once Dangerfield took that mark. And from where we were standing in the Joel Selwood stand, it looked like it went straight through. And it wasn't until maybe 2 days later when we watched the highlights that we realised, oh, that didn't look like it went in at all. But we were celebrating as soon as it left his boot. We were like, that's a goal. It's done. We were going nuts, shaking the foundation. It was a good game. Frustrating, obviously, as a Cats fan, letting a good lead slip a little and letting the Saints get back in. You could say it was a bit of a danger sign of what was to come in the next after the 7 weeks, letting teams that get that little bit of a run on. But at the time, we just enjoyed a really good win and a good way to start off the season, good way to open a Joel Selwood stand, and a good way to get things rolling, hopefully, which it sort of did.
We needed that. We needed that first win. We couldn't lose that first game. It was nice to see. I think you mentioned it, Jake. Ollie Dempsey play really well. It was nice to see a goal of the year nomination from Jezza, and he tested out the near boundary fence there by jumping on top. Could have fallen over and killed himself, but that's okay. And Tanner Bruin played his 50th game, AFL game, I should say, as well. And poor old Saints. Talk about getting frustrated, John. They've lost 12. They lost 12 straight at Kidinia Park, so they can't take a trick. But let's move on to round two. Now, that Jake, you spoke about this one. The Cats travelled for the second time in 4 weeks, it turns out, but we travelled over to Adelaide. Round two, we were forced to make a number of changes before the opening bounce. Little baby Duncan was on the way, so he had to pull out a few hours beforehand, the birth of his 4th child. Tommy Atkins had an adductor strain, and I was a couple of other players out as well from memory, but Geelong got a 19-point interstate win in Adelaide, which was great. I didn't think we were going to win this game. The Crows did hit the front briefly in the third quarter, but we did punish them with the next 4 goals there, including 3 to the big Tomahawk, who was promising a huge year. At that point, I thought, Tommy's in good form. Here he goes again. He's never getting old. We took a 24-point lead into the final change, and from that point, I think Crows might have had a bit of a fight back, but I think we held an arm's length there. Was that any memories from that game? I think it was Tom Stewart's 150th too, Jake?
Yeah, the only really clear thing that stands out to that game for me was the surge of panic that hit me or when they released all the late outs. And I
Oh,
remember
yes.
going, "Oh my lord, I already thought this was gonna be a tricky game." And then the other thing was, like, Tom Stewart just embarrassing whoever it was that he played on for the majority of the game and just thinking, "This is not really polite, Tommy Stewart." That's somebody's son that you're, taking to the cleaners out there, on every available opportunity. So I just a very spirited win. I thought, like, my memories to one that um, prior to 2007, we weren't winning a lot of those games. And I think, since 2007 and what has been built is that you go in and you back yourself to win that game. And although it's been forgotten over the course of the season, round two, everyone was still pretty high on what Adelaide could be. And
Yep.
they were still pretty high on what they themselves felt they could be. So I think it was a very impressive win on the road, given the circumstances.
John, I don't know if you remember this. We're going back a few months now, but Darcy Fogarty missed a shot in front of goal. I think he was top of the goal square with 6 minutes left when Adelaide was coming at that point, and you had to kick that. It might have been a bit of a different story. I think
Yeah.
Danger might have pinged his hamstring in the last quarter as well. But yeah, what did you? A couple of things. What did you think about the streaker, and what did you think about Mitch Nevitt's game time? I think he might have played like 3 seconds or 30 seconds of footy.
I cannot remember the streaker, but I do believe they didn't really show much of him on the
No.
broadcast, which they don't anymore, which is probably a good thing, not to encourage it. And
Wasn't much
Mitch
to
Nevitt,
see.
yeah, wasn't much to see. Mitch Nevitt, yeah, I can't remember much of his game. I can't remember too much of the game, but I do remember it felt like the Cats were in control for the majority of the game. They just kept them at arm's length the whole time. And yeah, Adelaide did press a little bit, but I never really felt like they were going to endanger us to a loss. I always thought the Cats looked like they had the answers to everything the Crows were able to throw our way.
I think so. And I think the other thing we didn't mention is that I'm sure a lot of Geelong fans, when they saw Parfitt was brought in as a late inclusion, probably rolled their eyes a little bit, thinking, "Oh, not Parfitt again! Come on!" But then, how good has Parfitt been this year? He's been absolutely terrific.
Very good.
But the Cats started the year 2-0, and then back to Victoria to play the old nemesis, the Soap Dodgers, the Poo and Wees, the Hawthorn Hawks at the MCG. Cats would have been feeling pretty comfortable about going 3-0 after this one. We kicked 7 goals in the first quarter. It was looking like it was all going to script. Everything was going nicely there. But Hawthorn felt otherwise, and they got within a kick early in the third quarter before we piled on 6 of the next 7 to blow it wide open again. This game, and John, maybe we'll go with you again, but I don't know if you remember this one. This was the game where the lightning storm stopped play for about 40 minutes there. I think it was the
Yes.
end of just before the restart of the fourth quarter. We went off for 40 minutes. I'm hearing stories about Hawkins and Cameron having cups of tea or coffee at the 3/4 time break and thinking it was really weird. But yeah, look, Hawthorn were coming after that. That's probably the thing that comes back to me now, that Hawks did mount a charge in that fourth quarter, but ultimately they were a little bit wasteful. But it was almost like, oh my God, please don't stop this game, because, yeah, sure enough, Hawthorn was coming. What are your memories of that moment, and how weird was that for you?
It's weird. I've completely forgotten about it since it's so long ago, and it was against the old scum, the Scummers. um,
Mm.
yeah, honestly, I cannot remember too much about this game because it was over Easter, which was a very busy time for me at work. So my memory's a bit fuzzy from
Easter Monday,
that
wasn't
time.
it?
Yeah,
Mm.
I do remember a good victory and one where the Hawks, as you said, Hawks were mounting a charge, but I always thought the Cats were going to win it. Um, apart from that, I can't really cast my mind back that far.
It's
Maybe
hard, isn't it? It gets a
because
little
work was
easier as we get further into the year, but yeah, these
yeah.
ones, these early rounds of the year, yes, we won them, and then we'll remember the feelings we got from winning them. But yeah, it is tricky. What about you, Jake? Have you got any recollections from this game? I'll lead you a little bit here. It was Tommy Hawkins' 350th game. So a nice celebration for Tommy there, and did pretty well in this game. Kicked 4 goals.
Yeah, it was a great game from the Big Hawk. Always nice to see him slotting goals against the old enemy. That was one of the most pleasing factors about it because even after the first couple of weeks against the Saints and the Crows, there'd already been chatter on Twitter about, oh, is Hawkey a bit past it? Does he have it in him still? And so to go and kick a nice little handful of goals against the Hawks was really enjoyable to see. But gee, was there a bit of foreshadowing not only for how our season might, take different turns, but also the Hawks? There were patches of that game, where we probably took our foot off the gas, but in hindsight, were there patches of the game where they put their foot on it? It wasn't so much about us dropping off. I don't know,
Yeah.
great to get that win, but it was another game as we go through here. Oh yeah, we gave away a really big run of goals in that game, and that sort of feels a bit familiar at this point in time.
It was an interesting one because the Hawks did start the year 0-5, and we started 7-0, but it just feels like that's turned a little bit now as well. And I saw Tommy Hawkins in the top 5 on the Coleman Medal, and I'm thinking, Tommy's still got it. And all this, I didn't think things were going to turn for him that badly, and he's starting to recapture a bit of form now. But there was a moment. This was, I guess, a laughable moment. Maybe not if you're a Hawthorn fan, but there was a moment there where Luke Bruce was caught in two minds. He was streaming into goal. The Hawks were coming with full steam. Tom Stewart is like, does he cover the bloke who's running to the goal square? Does he run to Luke Bruce? In the end, he runs to Luke Bruce. Bruce slips over, gathers himself, slips over again, and turns it over. So that was fun. But also good to see Brandon Parfitt put together a couple of good games, his second good game after being recalled. And a lot of Cats fans, I recall, saying, we can't drop this bloke. I mean, everyone just assumed he was coming in as a late inclusion the week before and he'd be out just as quick as he came in. But conversation turned on, well, we've got to keep Parfitt in the side. So, but yeah, 3-0. Things were feeling pretty good, 3-0. Going into the next game, back to Adelaide Oval. I really wanted to get to this game. It was gather round. We were playing the Western Bulldogs. I couldn't get a ticket. My own fault. I probably left it too late. I guess none of us from the Hoops crew went to this game, did we? But
No.
But it was these are some of the very early games in the year, and they're hard to remember. But it was an even contest throughout this game. 11 goals were kicked in a seesawing third quarter. It's crazy, really. We'd led by as much as 28 points at one stage, but the Bulldogs kicked the last 3 goals. And somehow, some way, the Catters found a way to hold on by 4 points. Ed Richards from the Bulldogs had the ball and was streaming through the middle of the ground, looking like they were setting up the match-winning play. But thankfully, someone in the timekeeper's box pushed that button and saved the Cats, and we won by 4 points. Jake, do you have any memories of gather round? Where are you at with this one? What's your recollection?
This is one of those games, that you could probably earmark as one of the ones in that first 7 weeks that you could trade places with it and the Bulldogs game, or it and the Giants game, or the Port game, where you feel like, oh, we could have won that game. Well, we equally could have lost this game. I have been, I think the Dogs are actually a pretty talented side. And I think, we saw an example of it on the weekend. When they put it together, I think they are a top 4 looking side. And when they don't put it together, they're, a bottom 6 looking side. But I rated that as a pretty good win. They have a deep midfield. So I was very happy to come away, as you are with any 4 points, but I just thought it was a strong effort. But it did probably show, like Jezza, 27 disposals. It was another game in which, we probably got smashed in traditional midfield numbers, but we're just so efficient at counter-attacking. And that's something that's probably been taken away a little bit. But yeah, no, I was happy with this win. Very happy.
John, I don't know if you remember, this was a game that stands out to me that Tom Liberatore absolutely tore us apart. He was killing it. I don't know, he had 28 contested possessions against us and 19 clearances. And a couple of young blokes from the Bulldogs really sort of put their name out there. Riley Sanders, one of the high draft picks from the draft last year, and Sam Darcy got nominated for the Rising Star. Those players have gone on to do some good things. Poor old Riley Sanders has been in and out of the team a little bit, but there was one moment, John, I'm not sure you remember, but he was running the wrong way with the ball. I think took a bounce at one point, and his teammates and everyone on the field, everyone had a good laugh at it, but including himself. But that was a funny moment.
That was a funny moment. It was only if he could have passed it to a Cats player, that would have been sensational.
It'd been great if he hit up Tommy Hawkin on his big ample chest. That would have been
Oh,
good.
imagine the feeling of kicking it inside your defensive 50 to intercept mark. You're going, oh my God, how can I hide?
Tommy Hawkins takes an intercept mark in the goal
Uh,
square. That would be great. That is.
yeah, I do remember this game because it was the first game that the team played without Captain Dangerfield,
Mm.
and I thought this was a really good opportunity for the team and also the midfield coming against a really well organised, well polished Bulldogs midfield with the Bont, Liberatore, Adam Treloar, Ed Richards at the time. I think he was playing midfield, so it was a really good test, and I thought the Cats came through that test really well. Come away with a really gutsy win. They never gave up. They didn't. Yes, Bont and Libba got a lot of disposals, but I also felt like they let him get those disposals and, as Jake said, used the turnover game against the Bulldogs really well. So I came away feeling really pleased and impressed by this win and going, this is a good glimpse of what the future can hold for this team if they continue to develop and grow.
Yeah, I think the commentary was a couple of Bulldogs players got off the leash, pun intended, but it was Geelong, the evenness of Geelong's midfield, which was being hailed at that point. It was a very even midfield, and we're doing it as a team rather than a bunch of individuals. And I think no Geelong player had 30 touches at this point after 4 rounds. Mark Blitzarves, before we move on from this game, Mark Blitzarves brought up his 250th game. A bloke that often sneaks under the radar, probably has his whole career really, but to play 250 games as a Category B rookie, was he a steeplechase? No, what is it? A steeplechaser, heptathlete? I can't remember what he was, but he didn't have a traditional
Steeplechaser.
Astronaut.
steeplechase. He didn't astronaut. High mission. But
Basketball
no,
player. He had a basketball
basketball
background, did you know?
background. Well, how many players have got a steeplechase background? Not many. Cats joined Carlton on a 4-0 start, looking good. I think Carlton may have been top of the ladder, but neither here nor there, really. 4-0 start. Not many of us had the Cats winning 4 in a row. I think most of us, if we were feeling confident, we would have had the Cats 3-1. Maybe there's a couple out there that had us 4-0. I definitely didn't. I think I would have been happy with 2-2 at this point. But so I was sitting here very comfortable, very much lower, Jake's saying. Much I had us, 2-2, would have been happy with that, but 4-0, very
I had us
happy
at
with
4
that.
0.
Well, there you go, John, 4-0.
Yeah, I was going to say Johnny had us
And
4 and zip.
and
Yeah.
from memory
I didn't.
serves, I think you had Conway as All Australian. It's not too late for Conway to make his run.
It's
but
still not too late.
It's not too late. It's still happening. All right, round 5. We're back at home at GMHBA. North Melbourne started pretty well. They started pretty well today as well, but they lost to Collingwood by a point after leading by 54. But that's not what this show is about. So North did start well. We trailed by 13 points. They trailed by 13 points at the quarter time. So, pretty good effort from them, really. But really, Geelong just put the foot down after that. North just really fielding a VFL team, to be honest. We won the game by 75 points. It's probably what we expected. I don't think you could have really asked the Cats to do much more than that. We didn't go crazy. We didn't need to win by 100. I think we would have worried if we had won by 20 or something. It's like, oh, hang on, what's going on here? But we did the job. It's 12 straight against the Kangaroos at any venue, really. And it's actually the second longest winning streak of any two teams. Well, Geelong over Kangaroos of any team in the AFL. I think Port Adelaide might have a winning streak against Gold Coast or something like that. I think that might be the longest winning streak at the moment, about 13 or 14. And we do get to play North Melbourne again in round 20, so that'll be interesting. I think they'll be a little bit better in round 20. Jake, any memories from this game? Jezza comes to mind with a big bag of goals.
Yeah, this was just like peak Jezza Cameron's a freak on Twitter kind of day. I just remember tweets flying left and right, just like what an unbelievable monster Jezza Cameron is. Sam often brings up the Monstars from Space Jam, and I sometimes think that Jezza Cameron is one of them. Sometimes he's just like this unbelievable life form from another planet that it's just like, oh yeah, he's huge and fast, and he can mark, and he can kick, and and he can sink tinnies around the fire. Yeah, so that's my main takeaway. Like, it was a bit of a blur, a bit of an obliteration. And Jezza Cameron is a total freak.
Absolute. He was insane. 6 goals. Tommy Hawkins was a late withdrawal for this game, John, but that did give an opportunity to Shannon Neal, and everyone in the AFL world was like, "Gee, come on, Geelong, stop. Where do you get these guys from?" Shannon Neal bobs up and kicks 3, and everyone's like, another one that they found. He was pretty good. Like I think he fumbled a couple, but your thoughts on Shannon Neal? Not so much this game, but just I guess his start to the year.
Contrary to many Cats fans out there, I think he's done fairly well for his second year playing a very few handful of games. So I think he's doing everything right. He can improve in most areas, mainly marking. But apart from that, I think the foundation for what he can become is all there, really good. We just need to get games into him, get the confidence up. But to be honest, I don't think his confidence needs to go much higher. He seems pretty confident in himself that he's going to be able to go out there and do a good job, and I think he has. And I thought he did really good against North Melbourne alongside Jeremy Cameron. So I think that they have found another one in him, and he's just needs time to build up. I mean, how long did it take Hawkins to become the player he was?
5
Any
years.
big man, yeah, any big man, it takes time. We just got to be patient, and that's the main thing for the Cats fans as well. We just got to be patient. This is maybe a
Exactly.
bit tough at the moment, but the future is looking sensational.
He did play. He did play with Connor O'Sullivan, Connor's debut game as well. So we will hope that Shannon Neal, Connor O'Sullivan, and the other big, tall Toby Conway, which we haven't talked about yet, but hopefully those 3 go on and play long careers in the hoops.
Fingers crossed.
For the fingers crossed, exactly. For North, Harry Sheezel was pretty impressive this game with his 38 touches, but we've probably come to expect that from him now. We win the game, as we said. We're 5-0. I think there's only 2 teams at this point. I didn't say. I think what I said before, it was just Geelong and Carlton with a 4-0 start. GWS were as well. But after this game, it was just Geelong and GWS at a 5-0. And probably the only other thing out of this game, not so much for us, but the young fella Colby McKercher got sent off to hospital after he hit in the ribs for North. So, but apparently he was okay, and I think he may have even played the next week from memory. I can't remember, but anyway. All right, round 6. Here we go. This is the one. I think we're playing round 6, Brisbane at the Gabba. Surely we're losing this game, guys. Surely we can't beat Brisbane at the Gabba. Yes, they haven't started well, but no. So I didn't go into this game with a lot of confidence. It was an arm wrestle. It was very wet conditions for 2.5 quarters before the Cats hit the accelerator late in the third quarter and kicked the final 4 goals of the game, including 9 of their last 11 goals of the game, to pretty much leave the Lions season in tatters. We won the game by 26 points. John, this was one where Tom Stewart got concussed, and I think the Brisbane ruckman McInerney got concussed as well. Toby Conway, we just talked about him. We just briefly mentioned Toby Conway before, but this is probably the game where Toby had this opportunity to really shine without Oscar McInerney. How did you rate his game or his early start to the year as well? Probably more broadly.
Yeah, I thought a pretty good first outing for him. If it was his first outing or first big
I think he played a
test.
couple by that
I
point, but
think he
yeah, it
did
was
play
his
a couple, but yeah, first
he went
real.
nuts a little bit. Yeah, he did
Yeah.
play pretty well.
And I think, we got to see that seed what he can become, and I think we're going to see a lot more of him in the next few weeks as well. Reece Stanley hasn't been up to the standard that he normally is, so I reckon Toby's going to get many opportunities, and he's going to take them with his massive hands and continue to improve and impress, because this was a really impressive game by him. He can get around the ground nicely, gets he's not afraid to get down and dirty, and it was another really impressive win. I don't think was Dangerfield playing this game. I don't think he was.
I don't think he was.
Yeah, and
Possibly.
another really good test for the young midfield against another pretty decent midfield, you'd say. But it's also
Definitely.
another one that the Cats just had to win for another reason on that particular weekend that Jake may mention. Pretty special day for him. Yeah,
Oh, yes.
very, very pleasing game by the Cats, and to see them, Lions got out, as you said, Lions got out to a bit of a good head start, and the way the Cats were able to reel them back in and get that victory was very pleasing. And I think a lot of Cats fans were going, "Oh yes, this is looking exciting. This is looking good. Getting a bit ahead of ourselves, maybe, but who knows? Who knows what can happen?"
What are your thoughts, Jake? Big weekend for you, this one?
It was a massive weekend. It was the weekend, of course, that I attempted to break the world record of most hot dog franks fitted into a sports sock, which had, previously been, I think it was 14 and a half, by a guy from India. Yeah, so that was a massive weekend for me. This
You got
game,
like you got like 16 or 18, didn't you?
16, I broke the record, which was fantastic.
Nice.
No, do you know my keenest memory of this game is Brandon Parfitt kicking an absolute banger of a goal in the wet. The sort of goal that I almost don't expect from Brandon Parfitt. Like he's such a gritty sort of, contested player, and he just produced this sublime bit of silk um, to spin out of. I think it was sort of like breaking free of congestion and just a perfect snap in the wet. I remember Jezza Cameron and Hawkins being held goalless. And who cares? Because we got to beat Chris Fagan. And there's only a couple of coaches I enjoy seeing miserable more than Chris Fagan in the
I
AFL.
didn't know that
So,
about you. There
and a
you
lot of
go.
them were attached to Hawthorn. So,
There you
good
go.
win, a really good win.
My biggest memory from this game was Zach Guthrie going full Hulk mode. Absolute beast. Was marking everything that came his way, especially after Tom Stewart went down. Everyone started talking about him being all Australian. I think I might have mentioned that he could have been a smoky at the start of the year for All Australian. I think he's dropped off a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but he definitely played really well there. The Cats go 6-0, the only unbeaten side in 2024, 6-0. Premiership favourites at this point, clearly, and Brisbane yet to win a game at the Gabba. All right, so these are some. We're getting into the more recent games now, so we can move through these ones a little bit quicker because we've already talked about them recently. But the round 7 game against Carlton, and I'll start off here. I'll go through it first. So it was a close game until the end of the third quarter when the Cats kicked 5 goals to lead by 33 points. We all sat back, very comfortable, crack a beer, off we go. We're just going to enjoy the last 10 minutes here. But no. Carlton had other ideas. They kicked 4 goals in time on to get within striking distance. A Jezza goal at the 29-minute mark finally finished them off. The Cats by 13 points in a very high scoring affair. Now, I sat back in the stands. I think it was about 86 or 87,000 people at this game. I was surrounded by Carlton fans that were giving me crap the whole time, and I was giving it back to, and I was very cocky at this point. End of the game, 7-0. I was farewelling everyone. That's the one I remember most. And now I regret being I got a bit too big headed in this game. I regret it now. I regret it now. We're playing Carlton in about 5 days' time. I feel like I'm going to get some comeuppance. I don't get many opportunities to say that word, but comeuppance is coming, possibly.
Not
Yeah,
at all.
not at all.
Not at
John,
all.
how did you see this game? It was a huge game. I think this is the
It's a
one where
huge game.
Danger did his hammy the second time in this
Yeah,
one.
and it was looking particularly exceptional this game,
It
coming back
was.
from the injury and just, yeah, he was on fire, absolutely burning everyone apart, doing everything that you would expect a player of his caliber to do. And then, yeah, as you said, I think it was like that lunging as he goes for the ball, lunging down below his knees, and it just went, which was a shame because we definitely could have used his leadership, his expertise, his experience, and also ability to just calm the midfield down a bit and reassure them, get them composed in the next 6 weeks. Yeah, this was another really positive win, especially the way Carlton had been playing previously. They were pretty sure they were nearly winning most games and playing really well, really good football. Another good another good test for the Cats, and we passed. So yeah, I was very pleased. And again, same as you, getting a bit ahead of ourselves, getting a bit cocky, a bit big-headed, feeling good.
We enjoyed it for the 7 days that we had. Jake, a quick one from you. Cam Guthrie returned in this game, took an absolute hanger there. How good was it to have Cam Guthrie back in this game?
Oh, it's so good. And, whenever he comes back and plays a game, I'm reminded how much I enjoy watching Cam Guthrie play footy. So, it's a shame that, he's been so hampered by injury the last few seasons. Yeah, but it was nice to see him back here. Hopefully we get him back. That's my optimism, as much for him as, for me, like, is that I just would love to see him end this season, the second half of it healthy, and maybe this is just a stint of his career we could put behind us, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, we'll have to. We might touch on him a little bit when we talk about some of the players, but yeah, it's let's hope this is a turning point for him. All right, now we're off to round 8. Clearly, the Cats' winning streak is going to continue. We're 7-0 at this point in time, coming up against Melbourne at the MCG. It was a very close game again. The Cats led by, well, no team really led by more than 3 goals, but unfortunately, Geelong lost this game by 8 points. We did have some opportunities to win it. It was very inaccurate. I think at one point there was 14 consecutive behinds from both teams combined. Margin was cut to 3 points with 4 minutes to go, but poor old Jezza, I don't know what was going on, but he just had no idea in front of goal. He was missing them all. He was making uncharacteristic mistakes. Very, very costly. On the opposite side, Harrison Petty was marking everything that came his way. He was Wayne Carey 2.0. Tommy Hawkins went a bit goalless for 4 quarters there. Jake, I'll ask you about Tommy here because you're a man of positive energy. What were you feeling about Tommy's run of form at this point in time?
Oh, I think it's very hard. Like, I think I often watch Hawkey and think, gosh, he works hard to stay involved, even when he's having a quiet game. I actually caught some glimpses of a game from 2009, when he was still making his way. I think it was a prelim final against Collingwood or something, or a qualifying final. His first half in that was sublime, like just setting. I'd sort of forgotten how unselfish he has been right from the start, and so yeah, like it's hard to see big forwards go goalless and see the amount of crap that they cop. And I get it. At the end of the day, he is, in the side to kick goals, but he does so much more than that. And I just think about, you throw what poor Shannon Neal in there. I've watched all of Shannon Neal's VFL footy the last couple of years, and I don't think he right now is any more ready to take on what was a really steely Melbourne backline, more so than a player who's now played the most games for his club in history. Um, yeah, unfortunately, there's lots of areas of this team that we're going to probably discuss over the last month that have been off. Hawkey copped a fair bit of criticism, I feel like, early in this losing streak, and even at times during the first 2 months of the season when we were winning.
He sure did. A bloke that wasn't copping a lot of criticism, John, was Max Holmes. Funnily,
Yeah.
this was the first game that a Geelong player had 30 touches, and Max at this point was like everyone was in love with Max Holmes. He was, including the rest of the AFL world. He was having a great run, wasn't he?
He was. Unfortunately, he cleared the 30 disposals, which possibly
He
cost us
ruined
the
it.
game. Ruined it.
Selfish footy.
Absolutely ruined it.
It was the jinx. It was like Colin Downing kicking goals. Don't kick goals because we don't win.
Exactly.
It's a curse.
Last thing you want.
Don't mention that. That happened, or that's already happened this year.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was a frustrating game. Like it felt like it was there for the taking, but they just couldn't grab it with both hands. And it's one of these games that we should have probably won it. We could have won it easily, but yeah, we just, as I said, just didn't grab it, and Melbourne did, and I thought it was probably Bailey Fritch's first game where I thought, "Oh, yeah,
Oh,
that
Bailey
is a
Fritz, yeah.
really good game," where he basically took it away from the Cats in a way,
He did.
like
He kicked
kicking
that
that
goal from
last
the
goal.
boundary or something. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
and Harrison Petty, as he said, and Max Gawn as well, it felt like we were aiming for them when we were going inside 50, and it was just one of those games you walk away going, "Well, that was a frustrating loss." We had every
Ah,
opportunity to win that, and we just didn't take it. But, that's football.
that's football. We can't win them all, and I don't think we were too stressed about it as fans. I think 7 and
No.
1, happy with that. It was we all said could have gone either way that game. Melbourne probably deserved it. It was a pretty ugly game to be honest, but it was a
Especially
nice
that
finish.
second
But it
quarter.
was that middle part of the game was horrible, absolutely horrible. All right, let's whip through the last couple of games pretty quickly. So we've got round 9, Port Adelaide at GMHBA. We just don't lose to Port Adelaide at GMHBA, do we? But Port had other ideas. That first quarter, 8 goals. What's going on? What is going on? The most they've scored against Geelong in the first quarter. They take a 49-point lead part way through the second quarter. 49 points. Um, we come back as we do. We like to let teams get a nice little lead on us, but and we just time our run. But we did keep the final 3 goals of the game, including a goal that was taken away because the umpire called advantage when didn't quite hit the boot of Jai Clark as sweetly as maybe what the umpire would have liked. So bring it back, bring it back. And then unfortunately, Ollie Henry just missed the snap on the boundary there, and we lose the game by 6 points. Even if we had to kick that goal or that goal was given, we still would have been a point down. But we did have all the momentum there. Did the Geelong fans, Jake, take this loss well? I don't think we did, from memory. Um,
I I was in the standing room again, and I was back to myself from probably 2007, 2008 form. Not directed at our players, but mainly at Ken Hinkley at the end of the game, who came on and gave it a bit of mayo.
oh, yes,
You'll
that's right.
it all works itself out eventually, Ken. The footy karma comes around. Um, so,
Yep.
don't walk out on Kardinia Park, "Oh, we've won the grand final." That really peed me off. But the thing about this result and, like, giving away the early starts that people need to realize is that in order for the AFL to abolish, rather to install the 666 rule so that Richmond's chances at more flags could be eroded, Geelong had to make an agreement that in 2024 we'd give away 5, 6, 7 goal leads to teams. That was the trade-off, um, in terms of our, corrupt deal with the AFL to do away with Richmond's advantage, and introduce the 666 rule. So this is a price you pay, It was a frustrating night. It was a very frustrating night. Um, we brought one of our mates to the footy who'd never been to a game of footy.
Oh,
It was, I did have to apologize to him afterwards. I said, "I'm sorry you had to see that side of me."
so clearly they had that was very clear at the end there what happened. You were able to explain it articulately how the umpire decided there was no advantage and bring it back,
Perfectly.
and your friend left the game fully understanding of what went down there. It was all fine. Um,
Very
John, I
well.
want to ask you,
Yep.
about Chris Scott because he was quite pivotal. You wouldn't have thought so, but Chris Scott made the call to sub out Reece Stanley. I think it was in the
Yeah.
second quarter there. It was subbing out Reece Stanley, but it was also his press conference afterwards. I won't say he was critical, but the AFL world interpreted his
Oh,
comments as being quite critical. And that'll probably lead us nicely into the next game against Gold Coast shortly. But a couple of the Reece Stanley one, talk me through that. How did you read that situation? Poor old Reece is how I read it.
oh, yeah, he just got a bit torched in that first quarter, and obviously Chris Scott was like, "We need some speed. We need some Irish luck going our way." So Oisin Mullen came in and did a fantastic job. And tell you that was a very smart and clever move by Scott because it turned around. It didn't turn around straight away, but it started to and got the ball rolling the right way, and the Cats nearly pipped that win. Again, another one of those games where, as Jake said earlier, a flip of a coin would win that. It's like not panic stations. It's not freaking out. It was close, yes. If we hadn't given away that early lead, we could have won it, but we'll move on to next week. And the comments, it's funny how some coaches can say many things about umpires or grounds and just get a fine, and then one coach says something, doesn't get a fine, and then bizarrely we have a game of the next week where, yeah, I'm not. I don't think we even need to go to the Gold Coast game.
Well, we will, because I will definitely go through it. Last thing I want to say about the Port Adelaide game is that Jeremy Cameron was concussed and didn't want to come off the field, and there was a whole lot of controversy about which is still continuing to this day, really, about the AFL having their own medicos and being able to stop the game if necessary. Jezza, as a competitive beast that he is, he didn't want to come off the ground, but the Geelong doctor didn't have the authority to tell the umpire to stop the game either. So what do you do in those situations? So I think those conversations are still happening. Not just the Jezza situation, but all those scenarios are playing out. And I don't know what the answers are, but I think watch this
Surely,
space on that.
surely the AFL just has to have a non-biased doctor there that
Surely.
just looks at the head knocks and goes, that player has to come off now, to the coaching staff and go, you need to bring that player off right now. No excuse, no reason. I think that's
Get off Jezza.
probably the simplest answer. Just get a non-club doctor at each game, and they just watch for head knocks and then take them for a test.
That's it. All right, we're going to spend about a minute on the Gold Coast game because I don't want to talk about it much, other than to say we were leading this game halfway through the second quarter. We lost by 64 points in Darwin, though. It was their biggest score ever. We talked about this just in the last bit, but Jake, are the umpires, have they got it in for Geelong? We were down by 14 free kicks. Gold Coast had 14 more free kicks. Was Geelong Twitter pretty level-headed that night? From memory, I don't think they were.
guys, like, you got to remember, there's a lot of rational ways to interpret waking up to find a horse head in your bed. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that the umpires had it in for the Cats. There's a lot of ways you can interpret it. Yeah, pretty abysmal, wasn't it? I mean, the thing is, as we talked about on the show, just bad skill errors too. There was lots of chances for Geelong to get their way, to wrestle some control back into that game. And it was bizarrely a lot of it happened in the front half, just players unable to take marks. But go back and watch that game at some point if you can stomach it. It looked like we were playing with a literal bar of soap all over the ground. It was hideous football. So yeah, look, the umpiring didn't help, but geez, we were pretty rough.
And everyone had their own bottle of vodka. It was nuts. Well, to be fair, we didn't have Jeremy Cameron or Hawkins or Duncan or Sam DeConning at the last minute, and Cam Guthrie would be subbed out, wouldn't play again up until the bye. Well, hasn't played again since the bye. He had an Achilles injury, which we found out afterwards. So, but that's it. So we've spent more than a minute on this game. I promised you I wouldn't spend any more than a minute on this one. Let's get the last three games in, and then we'll do a quick look at some of the players this year. So we go back to GMHBA. Surely we're going to beat GWS at GMHBA. They've beaten us 3 times in a row. But no, unfortunately, a 4th consecutive loss to GWS at Kiddania Park. Our 4th consecutive defeat after the 7-0 start. Things were starting to fall apart a little bit. GWS, similar to the Port game, GWS were off to a great start, 31 points in the third quarter before 5 straight Geelong goals put us in front. But our good friend Toby Green decided no. And then kicked the final goal for GWS, and that was the end of it. It was Tom Hawkins' 356th game, Jake, to break the record. It was a good game. I don't know. Did you think it was a good game? I didn't want to lose it, but I thought it was okay. Better than last week, anyway.
I would love to be able to tell you, but I couldn't watch it because my particular streaming service wouldn't work. So I listened to this one on the radio. So I was in a fantastic mood. I was in a great mood. This one probably did frustrate me a little bit. I guess just knowing that, they're a really hard playing team. They're going to come down and give us their best shot. They've beaten us, now, the last 3 times in a row at
Four times.
KP. But I could
now.
feel it happening. We had it. We had a great opportunity, couple of great opportunities to extend that lead from memory. We couldn't get it done. And then their superstar steps up and does it. So, just they deserve the win.
Yep. John, I'm going to skip you on this one because I'm going to get you to
Yep.
take the next couple. But other than to
No worries.
say, just finishing up on this game, Blitzarves and Clark would get suspended out of this game and wouldn't play the following week against Richmond. So let's talk about the Richmond game, John. Round 12 at GMHBA. Surely we're going to win. Surely we have to win at GMHBA. But it didn't look good to start with. The Tigers got out to a 29-point lead with their VFL reserves squad. Can you believe it, John? We did turn around, though, in the third quarter to kick 6 goals, and we went on to win the game by 30 points. So 59-point turnaround, if I've done my maths right there. John, real quick on this game, some thoughts on it?
It's funny how one team can have a 60-point turnaround and no one bats an eyelid, yet another team does it against us, and everyone says, "Oh, they're the greatest team going around. It's the greatest victory for this team going around." Yeah, I thought it was a gutsy win by the Cats, one that was desperately needed and one that the Cats fans were expecting. Richmond started off really well. They had all the energy, all the go, all the pizzazz, all that, and then they ran out of all that, and the Cats just, used their experience and knowledge of game plan and strategy and how to use your energy at the right time and run away comfortable victories. Yeah, it was a good game to watch. Exciting, a little bit nerve-wracking at the start, but deep down, I always thought we were going to win this. And I think at halftime, I was like, "Yeah, we've got this in the bag." Richmond have
It
just
felt
slowed
like
up.
that.
They've
Yeah.
got no real feel going forward at all, and the Cats ran over the top of them.
I'm going to stay with you here, John. Sorry, Jake. Sit down and enjoy a glass of water. But John, your emotions in the Sydney game. Now, I think it was it first versus second or first versus third or something like that. I think
I
it
think it
might have
was
been.
first, third, yeah.
Yeah, could have been. Could have been. Not many Cats fans gave us a chance in this one, John. But did you think we were going to come out in the first quarter the way we did? Surely you're Nostradamus and predicted that.
I'm always very confident in the Cats that we can win any game. I was feeling the same about this. Made a bet with my boss at work, and unfortunately, I couldn't watch it. So I was just sort of keeping an eye on score. And I realised at how well the Cats got out. I was like, "Yes, this is sensational." And then slowly, little bit by little bit, the Swans just edged and edged away back in front, got it to a pretty good lead, and then the Cats fought back. And I think this was a really telling game by the Cats that were able to get back in within 12 points. And if we kicked that last goal, that was a point to Mitch Duncan, I think we could have won that. If Duncan had just kicked that goal, I
Yeah.
think we could have come away with a possible victory. And then unfortunately, the Swans kicked the next, 3 or 4 goals and had a 30-point victory. Good on them. Best team in the league at the moment. The Cats took it right up to them until the last, 10 minutes, 8 minutes. So, yeah, I was disappointed, but not distraught or giving up on this year or going, "Oh, this is just terrible." Chuck it in, season's over. I still think the Cats can do something pretty special this year.
Yeah, it was tough. I reckon we could make a video on sliding doors moments in the Cats' history. Just all these things. If that had happened, if we had taken that mark or got a fist, got it over the line, or maybe set up a bit better in the ruck situation in the 2005 semi-final. all these moments in Geelong's history that you just one
Especially
thing was
the last
different.
6 weeks.
Oh goodness me, that could have changed so much. Jake, before we get into some player stuff, is there anything from the Sydney game that you took out of it that you want to mention? Is there anything, any moments or any feelings that you took away from it?
If there was ever a time where you'd love to be able to call a timeout as a team,
Yeah.
It was about 2 goals into that avalanche from Sydney at the end of the second quarter. Just want to be able to stop that right there, give us a timeout. Let's just break that because, as we said on the pod, it was just center bounce, goal, center bounce, goal, center bounce, goal. And so that was disappointing. Tyson Stengel was excellent. I think, yeah, no, look, we really got into it in the Chaps podcast. I think there's the midfield cops a lot of blame in losses like this, and I get it, but you're essentially missing, 2 of your best 3 mids. Cats would have gone into this season planning to have Cam Guthrie, planning to have Patrick Dangerfield, Max Holmes, maybe even as the third rotation, and then as the third man up, and then Tom Atkins as a fourth, maybe Tanner Bruin as a fifth, whatever. So guys are being asked to play roles well above what they are cast in the side to do. And the fact that they were able to get the job done for so long, the fact they didn't give up, the fact they actually came back at the end there and fought their way back in it. Yep, Swans got some late ones to blow it out. I felt like a 4-goal margin would have been pretty appropriate. 30 was maybe a little bit of sauce on it, but I think there was some stuff to like, and also some repeating patterns that are very frustrating.
Fair enough.
But maybe the bye comes at a good time where you can rectify some of that.
Yeah, we head into the second part of the year full steam ahead. All right, so the second part of the show, and we'll do this relatively quickly because what I might do is, we're going to talk about some player reviews. So I'll start with the bunch of guys that have played all 13 games. But what I might do is just, and we'll take it in turns. I'll get you to go first, John. Maybe there's a player from this next group that you want to talk about, a highlight especially, and I'll let you just talk about that one player. Jake, I'll get you to do the next crop of players. So I might make a separate video as well where I'll dive into a little bit more detail, provide a little bit more commentary and thoughts on each of these players, where I've seen their season to date and where I think their season's going or their career trajectory as well. But the first group of players that have played all 13 games this year are Max Holmes, Brian Myers, Zachary Guthrie, Ollie Dempsey, Tyson Stengel, Brad Close, and Jack Henry. John, from that crop of players, who are you liking the most so far? Doesn't have to be the best player, but who are you liking so far this year?
Liking them all, but I'm going to pick Tyson Stengel. I think this is just an absolutely sensational year by Stengel. Last year was a bit quiet alongside many other cats, but I feel like this year he's gone back to 2022, if not slightly better. And he's been the one forward that has been keeping the Cats in all these games that we've lost. Like, if he wasn't there, it could have been a lot worse, these losses. But yeah, he's gone sensational this year, keeping us in the Swans game, keeping us in the Melbourne game, the Port game, and just continues to grow and grow and grow. And tell you what, if he, fingers crossed that they can get him to sign this contract, there's still a lot of talk about him moving to Melbourne or St Kilda or wherever. Hopefully, he stays a Cat, keeps the loyalty going because he is playing sensational. He's playing like a player in a contract year, as they say. But yeah, I've just been loving his game. It's been brilliant to watch. He's, that goal against Sydney, goal of the
Yeah.
year against Sydney was just freakish.
Chef's
That's what he was
kiss.
doing in 2022. He's doing it again this year. And he can be one of those players that other guys start following, like lifting up with him as well. So, yeah, sensational year. Keep it up, Stengel. Absolutely brilliant.
And hopefully, an All-Australian is on the way, number 2. Now, I know, Jake, there
Surely.
probably was a couple of players there that you probably wanted to talk about, but I'm going to make you hold fire, and I'll get you to talk about this next group, Jake. So pick a player from this group that you want to touch on. So these are the players that have played 12 games. So they've either missed a game through injury or they've been managed. I don't think anyone's been omitted, but I could be wrong. So I've got Tom Stewart, Jeremy Cameron, Tom Atkins, Jake Collar-Jasny, Mark Blitzarves, Sam DeConning, and Ollie Henry. One player, Jake, you want to highlight?
Tom Atkins.
Of course.
Tom Atkins, again, often has been cast as a bit of a whipping boy. He is playing in rarefied air. He's playing at an altitude he's not really normally expected to play at. There's plenty of games in this season where he's been our best midfield. He was significantly improved in some really interesting areas against Sydney. Like, people will look at the Richmond performance where he had, nearly 30 touches and I think double-digit tackles and maybe double-digit clearances. But his disposal efficiency actually increased against Sydney. He actually found a couple of areas of improvement in that game. Like, it was a game where a lot of Geelong's midfield group were down on what they did against the Tigers, but only a couple of guys, Max Holmes and Atkins being two of them, found areas where they actually found some development and improvement. I think Atkins, he's been really important, I think, for this Cats team. I just think that he works his backside off no matter whether they're up by 5 goals, whether they're down by 5 goals. He cracks in and has a go, and I think that's so important in a team like this that's in transition. And if he is, for instance, eventually forced out of the team over the next few years by other players maybe who come through with a more natural talent level, if that does happen, Cats fans should be forever thankful to Tom Atkins and the sort of job that he does
Mhm.
for this team, because he does a lot of the thankless work. He cops a lot of crap online from people. Um, I love him to bits. I hope he is a Cat for a long, long time, but we'll see.
Let's hope so. And hear to those comments, Jake. Now I'm going to take the next group here. So these are the players that have missed a few. They've played 7 to 11 games this year, and they are Mitch Duncan, Tanner Bruhn, Mark O'Connor, Jai Clark, Tom Hawkins, Jack Bowes, Zach Tui, Brandon Parfitt, Reese Stanley, and Oshin Mullen. Who am I going to highlight? I'm going to highlight Jack Bowes, and the reason I'm highlighting Jack Bowes is because I've been down on Jack last year. I wasn't his biggest fan, and a lot of other Cats fans love this bloke, and it's taken me probably 13 weeks to get my head around to the idea that I think I like this guy now. I've come around very, very slowly, but I love what he's doing. I think he's really found his spot. Similar to Tanner Bruhn, and I'm only talking about one player, but Jack Bowes has really started to find a spot in this Geelong side. And it gets to the point where you start to ask yourself the question, why have we got the sub vest on this bloke? Can we get him into the game? Can we get him into the midfield? We need Jack Bowes. Unfortunately, he has missed a couple of games, and we've really looked like we've missed him in those games. So hopefully the second half of the year, the last 10 games of the season are really good. I think he'll go on to be better and better. He's in that nice sort of sweet spot in his mid-20s, similar to Atkins, as you mentioned, Jake, as well. So I think hopefully those two will lead this next younger crop into the next 5 or 6 years. Hopefully, I think it sounds like he's really enjoying his time at the Cats and has made some good friends and is enjoying life down this way. I just think he's going to get better and better. If he doesn't get better and better this season, I think he's going to take it to another level next year as well, and will be one of the true leaders of this football club. All right, John, back to you. Now, this is a bunch of young guys that have played either a game or anywhere up to 1 game to 6 games. Okay, so we've got Toby Conway, future All-Australian, and Shannon Neal, Gary Rowan, Patrick Dangerfield, Cam Guthrie, Shawnee Manor, Connor O'Sullivan, and the 2-minute man, Mitch Nevitt. One play, mate, you want to touch on here?
I'm going to go with Dangerfield.
Okay.
He's the one player I think we're desperately needing back as soon as possible. Hopefully he's back this week against Carlton, because I tell you what, that, as I said earlier, that lack of just experience, leadership, and knowledge of how to control a game at certain points is just what's lacking in that midfield at the moment. Just that lack of polish as well going forward. Because he's started this year sensational. He's lifted this team up to a really good level, got them through many games. He got us through the St Kilda game, a few other games as well. It was like Adelaide game. He was really getting us through that until he got injured, and just being a really positive captain. Second year as captain, got off the shackles of Joel Selwood influence, you would say, got out of his shadow a bit and becoming his own captain. And to see him not play that many games is a real shame, and you can really feel that impact. So hopefully he comes back Friday night and has a massive impact and can bring a really good victory for this team. And I
Oh,
think he can.
I really, really hope so. Jake, I don't know about you, but found it really hard to not want to talk about some other players there as John's going through it. And even when you were going through it, I want to chip in, but we're trying to keep the show moving. I've saved the last one for you, Jake. It's all the players in the VFL that haven't played a game of footy in the senior team this year. And they are Jed Bewes, Ted Closey, Mitch Hardy, Lawson Humphreys, George Stevens, James Bruce Willis, Oscar Murdoch, Joe Furphy, Mitchell Edwards, Phoenix Foster, Ollie Wiltshire, and Emerson Jecker. One player that you love from this crop, mate.
Oh, this is tough to pick. I'm doing my VFLW recap podcast for our Patreon subscribers tomorrow. If I get time, maybe I'll add a full-size mid-season review for the VFL. I can discuss more of these players in a bit of depth. I'd like to do that because it's so hard to pick. I'm going to go an obvious one, though. Lawson Humphreys. Humphreys is, my goodness, pick number 78. Pick number 78. He looks like an absolute jet. He's played 10 games for the Cats in his rookie season. He's had 20 or more disposals in 9 of those games. The only game he's failed to rack up 20 touches was round 1 when he had 15. On the weekend against Sydney, something I've really liked about him is obviously it pops off the screen if you watch him. He's very smooth moving. He's got a lot of speed and burst and acceleration. He's exceptionally good, left or right foot. As I've said repeatedly on the podcast, I actually don't know if he's a left or a right footer. He kicks that well off both, makes good decisions. My one little knock was, okay, how is he defensively? He's playing off halfback, but what about those situations where he's matched up one-on-one with someone and gets forced into those situations to defend? Can he do it? Early in the season, question marks. Against Sydney, Sydney was his best 4 quarters of the season. He had multiple important spoiling efforts, including a goal-saving one right at the end when the Swans were threatening to run over the top of the Cats. He has an incredible spoil there. And then 90 seconds later, he bobs up to kick the match winner on the run from 50 out. Also set Brandon Parfitt up with one of the most gorgeous kicks you're ever likely to see. He is a player with a capital P, Lawson Humphreys. I just think sky's the limit for him.
Mate, I hope you do a video about some of these other players because of this. I know a lot of people, especially Patreon supporters, really want to know about how some of these young guys are traveling and possibly how Jed Bewes is traveling as well, premiership player. So if you don't get around to it mid-season and hopefully at the end of the year, we get something from you there as well. All right, let's finish the show off with a quick look at the run home, the final 10 games. We won't dwell on that too long. I'll just run through them and then we'll come to some predictions that we each have for the rest of the year. So next week, as we know, we've got Carlton at the MCG, and that's followed by Essendon and Hawthorn at the GMHBA the next 2 weeks. So, I'd say we'd be pretty confident about those two. Then we're back to the MCG against Collingwood. After that, should be a good game there. Bulldogs come to GMHBA after that, and then we're off to Tassie to play North Melbourne, a resurgent North Melbourne. We'll see how they go there. Adelaide's making the trip to GMHBA after that. We're off on the aeroplane to Optus Stadium to take on Fremantle. I've got no idea what kind of Fremantle side we'll be looking at that stage. St Kilda at Marvel. I've got some bad memories of last year playing St Kilda at Marvel in the second last game of the year. West Coast will finish the season off at GMHBA, which you'd have to think we win that one. But let's do some predictions. Jake, I'll start with you. Where will the Cats finish on the ladder? Don't talk about finals just yet, but where will we finish on the ladder?
I think we need to win 7 of those 10 games to get to 15, and I think we could be a fringy top 4 side Teams have made it, winning 15 games, I believe, if you look into the past. I could be wrong there. I could be totally wrong. But anyway, the point being, the ladder's so mixed up at the moment anyway. I think we finish in the range of 4th to 7th.
4th to 7th.
Somewhere in there. Somewhere in there.
What about you, John? Where are we finishing on the ladder?
I reckon we could go up to 3rd. And then
okay.
whatever blow. I still think, as I said earlier, I still think we can win all these games coming up. I think if we play well enough and luck's on our side and the footy gods are on our side, we've got every chance to win all these games. And, I'm always very optimistic about the Cats. And we haven't played bad football in the last 6 weeks apart from the Gold Coast game. We could have won all those games apart from Gold Coast if we're just taking those opportunities. And who knows, this bye may turn things around. So, yeah, I'm very optimistic that we can finish like 3rd. And then who knows from there, like it could be down to 8 or even outside of the gate. But
Interesting.
it's such a tight season. I don't think even Swans will be comfortable at the top just yet. Things can change so quickly. You never know.
Save your best for last, Swannies. You don't go too early. Look, I've got the Cats. In the last 10 games, I think we should, I'm saying should win 8 of those 10. In reality, I think we'll probably win 6 of them. I think Geelong's just been a little inconsistent this year, and there'll be a couple of those games that we just drop somehow. So I think 6 out of 10 probably leaves us around about 7th or 8th on the ladder, which probably takes me to the next bit. Where do I feel like, yes, we're making the finals. I think we've all said we're going to finish in the finals. Where does Geelong's story end? I was thinking it would be a prelim. I think it's a semi-final at this point. I think that's probably where the story ends for the Cats in 24. Jake, where does this story end? Does it end with Dangerfield being a premiership captain and retiring, walking off into the sunset, or is it a bit more dark and gloomy than that?
I hope it ends like that. I think there's so many variables. If Danger's healthy, like I was just thinking earlier, sorry, I don't want to extend the runtime, but I was just thinking earlier, if you told us before the season you're going to be 8-5, but Dangerfield's going to have played less than 6 games, I think most of us would have taken that. If you frame it in that context, Cam Guthrie, Dangerfield, neither of them are going to play more than 6 games in the first half. I think we'd have bitten your hand off for 8-5. Given some of the, I think I don't want to say, like, whatever I say is going to sound super pessimistic, but I don't mean it that way. I think we can win a final and see what happens, basically, is where I'm at. I don't know. It's too hard to predict. I think we've got it in us to win a final. If you win a final, who knows?
John, you had us finishing 3rd on the ladder. Assuming we do finish 3rd, what does that mean for how do the finals play out, do you think?
Optimistic me says we can make a grand final. Realistic me says probably similar to what you're saying. Then plays like semi-final, prelim at the stretch. The way we're playing at this very moment. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's so tough. As Jake was saying, there's so many variables. There's so many ups and downs. Like teams ahead of us could fall off the cliff, or teams below us could soar up into a stratosphere. Like the bloody Hawks at the moment. Like, never know what could happen this year. I think it's a lot closer than what people realize that ladder is. Like I keep forgetting how many teams are on the same points around us, and it's just and even below us. There's less than one game from like I think 3rd or 4th to somewhere outside of the 8. So it's still wide open. Yeah, hopefully grand final, but I would also be happy with a semi or prelim.
Yeah, look, hopefully we go at least into the second week of the finals there. Now, the Twitter poll that we put up earlier today has 66% of fans don't think we can win the premiership this year. There's a few of us that are supremely confident. I think about 5% of us think we have certainties for the flag. But yeah, most of us have us not winning or not being anywhere near. Most of us probably haven't got us anywhere near it winning. So it's going to be tricky. One word or two words, if you want to use first and second name. Who's winning the Cargie Greaves medal for the Cats at this point in time? Who wants to go first? I'll start with you, John. Give Jake some time.
It's a
Thinking
tough
music.
one. I'm going to go with Max Holmes.
What about yourself, Jake?
Tyson Stengel.
He was my second choice.
Good choice. I'm going to mix it up and I'm going to say Zachary Guthrie.
Nice.
That will be a fantastic story if Zach Guthrie becomes a Cargie Greaves medalist. I hope it happens. I really do. I was going to ask about retirements, but I'm not going to ask about retirements. I'm going to finish on a positive note. There might be another video for the last month of the year, depending on how the season plays out. If we need to go down that path. But yeah, it could be some players that we're going to. Who's cooked? I'll have to have a cook. I'll get you to knock up a cooking thumbnail for us, Jake. On that one. Jezza holding the pot with the stirring spoon. Lads, thank you very much. It's been a fun show. We always drag these shows. It was only 15 minutes over time, so it wasn't that bad.
Not too bad.
Thanks for that. Thank you to everyone on Patreon for supporting us this year so far. It's about halfway through. We were actually really surprised at the amount of support we've got so far. So really, on behalf of all of us, a huge thank you to all of you for your support. Means heaps to us, and anyone who's watched an episode on YouTube or listened to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, or if you've subscribed to us, we love you so much, and we really appreciate that you coming on this journey with us. And hopefully you'll stay on this journey to the end of the year. And hopefully it's a bit of fun, and we do go deep in finals. It'd be nice to sort of send a few of these old boys with another premiership. Yes, we can be greedy. We're allowed to be greedy, aren't we? But
absolutely,
we can be greedy. That's okay. Jake, thank you very much. Johnny,
thanks for having me on. It's nice.
Johnny, you're a legend. Thanks for your time. Cats fans,
thanks for having us.
Stay Geelong strong. We'll see you on the next one. Go Catters. See you later, everyone.
Go Cats.